Welcome to Businesses Walking Tall. Here we highlight businesses, no matter the industry, that value mental health in their own way, while also being a part of our Walking Tall movement. I'm Chris Malazewski, a co-founder of the Walking Tall movement and co-host of the Walking Tall podcast. And I'm so excited to highlight Dr. Carrie Steiner and the First Responders Wellness Center. Dr. Steiner served the Chicago Police Department as an officer for nearly 13 years. And while she is no longer an officer, she is now a licensed clinical psychologist and founder of the First Responders Wellness Center in the Chicagoland area in Illinois. Dr. Steiner, thank you for your service and thank you for being a part of the Walking Tall movement. Please tell us about yourself and the First Responders Wellness Center.
Thank you so much for having me. Like you said, I was a Chicago police officer, but while I was a police officer, I saw so many officers experiencing so much trauma and really changing from that. I saw officers become alcoholics or abuse alcohol. I saw officers committing suicide. I saw officers on their second or third marriages and really changing. And I was getting my doctorate while I was a police officer, and I saw so many things happening with the people around me that was so exactly impacted by trauma as I was learning about trauma and the impacts from cumulative trauma. Sure. And so I really thought, like, I need to help, this community. And I was thinking once I did my 20 years, I would, do this. However, around the 13th year, I had an officer call me and say that he had a gun in his lap and that he wanted to shoot himself. And I told him to go to the EAP, and he said, I just left there and I didn't feel like they helped at all. And they made me feel like my issues weren't big enough compared to others. And I was trying to think, who could I send him to as a clinical psychologist to another psychologist without him going inpatient or losing his FOID card, since we're in Illinois. And I couldn't think of anybody because I know if I call a psychologist and I say there's a guy with a gun in his lap, would you come see him? They're going to say, no, call 911. But from a clinical perspective, I realize officers have guns with themselves all the time. And if he already made an appointment to go to a therapist and he made that, and he still didn't feel like that was good, and he still reached out, I really felt from a clinical point of view, he's looking for help. He's not looking to kill himself. And so it was at that time that I was like, I think I understand this culture much better than the average psychologist does, and I should bridge that gap. And so after that moment, I came home and I told my husband, I said, I think I have a calling and I think I need to leave the police department and open up my own center. And I started the First Responders Wellness Center. And that's why I'm here.
Amazing. And yeah, a little about the First Responders Wellness Center that I know intimately that others may not, is I believe the majority of your practitioners are former first responders as well, and you only serve first responders. So talk to us briefly a little bit about that and how that came to be as well.
Yeah, so I really feel like, again, first responders have their own culture. So I wanted to have a staff that understood that. And so all of our staff are former first responders or people who work directly with first responders or who have a spouse that's a first responder. So they really understand the culture and really have a passion. All of us here, we love what we do. And that's why, again, when the Highland Park shooting happened, I was so available so quickly because I was like, this is what I'm here for, is to be able to handle and manage that and to be available for people if they need it. So I think it is unique because we only serve first responders and veterans. And so you can bring a gun to the office. You can be in uniform in the office. And lots of times in our parking lot, we have squad cars. So probably very different than most, therapist office. So yeah, it's very different here.
Yeah, absolutely. And without saying too much, I'm a beneficiary of your service. And it's evident that you personally, Dr. Steiner, and the First Responders Wellness Center values mental health. But you alluded to, my experience on the 4th and your service to that. So if you don't mind, just talk to us a little bit about what you did for me personally, for our organization, and for the Highland Park community.
Well, so when the Highland Park shooting happened, it was probably maybe 20 minutes into it. And actually, I got a call from one of your bosses who had worked with me at another police department. And she said, "Hey, we're going to need services. And are you available?" And I was ready to go to my own parade. And I stopped everything and I was like, "Yep, what do you need?" And she was like, "Can you come out tomorrow and help us just debrief this and help some of the people because they're struggling?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." And so I got some of my staff to come out, and we continued to kind of check in with you guys and figure out what do you need. And what we saw is that a lot of people from the Highland Park District, as well as the library, because those were the people that were walking where the shooting happened, and so we realized they were also impacted. And so again, we do trauma services, so we wanted to extend that to also help them as well. So we did some debriefings. We've offered individual debriefings. We are seeing some people individually, and then one of our staff is also doing monthly groups to just kind of help people process this whole thing, because it is so abnormal and it is so impactful. It really shakes trauma, and especially mass shootings really shakes your whole idea of safety in the community. It changes, a lot of times your belief system about the world and other people. And so I think it's so important that we offer services, and we continue to work with you guys in Highland Park, in many agencies within Highland Park and the Highland Park Police Department, to kind of make sure that we're doing some wraparound services and making sure that we are checking in with everybody.
Yeah, as I said, I've been a beneficiary of your services, and I can't just speak highly enough of the work you do and some of your staff. And so thank you for that. But as I've said many times, and as that was the worst day of my life, but from it came the Walking Tall movement and what we're doing now about our experiences. And so if you don't mind, speak briefly about how the First Responders Wellness Center feels about our movement and what we're doing to do good in the world based on bad.
Well, I think, one of the things is that when we do try to come out and help people, what the goal is that they're feeling better, or that they can also help other people, right? And so you are like a prime example, and we're so proud of what you guys have done, because now you are also helping other people. And like you said, you're helping people worldwide. Unfortunately, people across the whole world are dealing with mass shootings, and it is one of the worst things. But I also saw, and just like you said, is out of the worst sometimes can bring the best. And that is seeing that people are willing to help and willing to step up and say, how can we make the world a better place? And how can we make it safer? And how can we also have a voice? And so Walking Tall is exactly about that, right? Walking tall and saying we can have a voice, we can share what we're feeling, and to know that this is impactful and that other people are going through the same thing, and to be vulnerable and to share that, because it's not easy. Because what I see whenever I deal with mass shootings is that everybody feels like everybody else is handling it way better than they are. But I'm here to say nobody's handling it well. It is outside the scope of anything that any of us have dealt with,
Yeah.
right? So it's so important to understand that. And that's why Walking Tall is so important, because you're getting that message out and you're talking about the realness of mass shootings and the aftermath.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better ourselves. I think you just created our first publicity reel. So thank you for that, Dr. Steiner. But I wanted just to say, thank you to you, and thank you to everybody else who is a part of the Walking Tall movement, and all the businesses who've taken interest in us. And if you and your business takes interest in the Walking Tall movement and values mental health, and you want to tell the world about it, please reach out directly to me at chris@walkingtallpodcast.com. Once again, that's chris@walkingtallpodcast.com, and we'll be sure to highlight your business and your interest in our movement and mental health. Dr. Steiner, before we say goodbye, there's always one last thing we want to tell listeners, and I'd be honored if you lead us in that. So the floor is yours.
Please walk tall.
Walk tall, everybody. Walk tall.
Walk tall.